it's hard to see what kind of man I used to be. Now I'm empty, void of fear. How can a man just disappear? Dark and hazy city nights, immersed in the neon lights. People in the shadows fight a higher cause to change our lives. Close my eyes, I try to sleep but in my mind there's no reality. I'm latching on to all I know, and I've no idea where to go. Dark and hazy city nights, immersed in the neon lights. People in the shadows fight a higher cause to change our lives. Close my eyes, I try to sleep but in my mind there's no reality. I'm latching on to all I know, and I've no idea where to go.
Yo, yo, yo. Damn it. Why does it always go out? What's going on, yo? How we doing? How we feeling? Hope you guys are doing well, staying safe. Come on now. It's just not gonna work. Did it fully die? Oh, no. This is just incredibly specific. Anyways, hope you guys are doing well, staying safe, having some fun. Welcome on in to another episode of Fantasy Haus Live. So, it's been, it was a hell of a week. Yeah, I don't think I have actually too much of an update. I don't think really too much has changed. Yeah, so without, I guess, too much further ado, let's just jump right into it. Alright. So, as always, we're going to take a quick little look at, let me turn this down just a hair so I don't have to compete with it quite as much. Okay, so first we're going to take a look at, all the action that happened across the league. And since it was, it's just a little solo dolo day of me, we're going to take a quick little look-ski. Okay, let's go to captures. Oh, that is the wrong thing. Where is it? There it is. Okay. Alright. So week 3. It was a big week. So starting off at the top here, we had Massage Watson picking up the win over new team Same Zeke by a score of 134 to 129. In our second matchup here, we had Destino picking up another win over Team Ditka. In our third matchup, we had Team Nugent picking up a huge win over Desert Swarm by one of the largest score lines I've seen probably ever. It's 190 to 160, and you can guess that he probably had some Miami Dolphins in there. Anyways, in our next matchup, D. Adams family got the big win over Young Guns by a score of 111 to 102. In our second to last matchup, Kelsey Me Softly, our reigning champion, was able to get the win over CD's Nuts by a score of 131 to 115. And finally, in our last matchup, BJJ's was able to get another win over Bob's Burgers with, a score of 130 to 118. And as always, we're going to take I shouldn't say a quick look, but we're going to kind of go over each of these games, see how it broke down and who were the best players. Okay, so let's go to our break it down. Okay, and starting, like I said, with our first matchup, which was new team Same Zeke taking on Massage Watson. Scroll this down so we get their framing all nice. Can we go in one more? I think we can. Do that. Perfect. Now we can just scroll up. Perfect. Okay. So, starting at the top, and as always with the quarterbacks. New team Same Zeke had Lamar Jackson going off for 30 points, even though losing to Indianapolis this weekend. Deshaun Watson on the other side had a few rough plays, but still managed to get off 24 points in the win over Tennessee. It was actually a pretty big win, 27-3, so kind of an ass kicking. But a lot of that can be attributed to that defense, because that Cleveland defense is actually, weird that I'm saying this, but Cleveland defense is actually pretty good. In our battle of the running backs, we had Joe Mixon, who went off for 14 points in that narrow win over the Rams. Had me sweating this week because all of my players played on Sunday. So watching that Monday night game, I was just like, please don't give it to Joe Mixon. Please don't give it to Joe Mixon. And they kept doing it and almost sank me. Whereas Najee Harris, the whole I don't know, that whole running back situation with the Steelers is just kind of brutal right now. Najee Harris, he's been sort of splitting touches with Jaylen Warren. Neither of them have looked really spectacular at all. So he was only able to get 6 points in the win over Las Vegas. Now, if we move into our next set of running backs, new team same Zeke had Isaiah Pacheco, who put up a modest 15 points in that big just thumping of Chicago. While Kendre Miller, who most people have not heard of, who is the running back, pretty much, he's not the running back, he is the backup's backup there in New Orleans, only able to get 4 points when he was taking some first team reps there, because he was pretty much by default, but wasn't able to do too much. No, it was like him and another, like I think a rookie, but in that insane comeback victory for the Pack, only able to get 4 points. Anyways, we can talk about that all day, but we won't. Moving into our first set of wide receivers, we had Justin Jefferson, who was probably the number 1 or number 2 pick in a lot of people's drafts, getting 27 points in that loss to the Chargers. While for Massage Watson, Amon-Ra St. Brown went off for, I shouldn't say went off, he was able to get 19 points. Respectable considering just the man across from him was Jefferson, who threw up 27. And hey, we'll take any points at this point, especially when we're hurting at running back. In our second wide receiver spot, new team same Zeke had Gabe Davis go off for 10 points. So hey, at least he scored. I know he did get that, so we'll take those gimme touchdowns. While on the opposite side, Massage Watson had Keenan Allen, who was just doing it all. He threw for a touchdown. He also caught a few. Did he end up actually getting a touchdown? I do not recall straight up off the top of my head if he actually ended up getting a touchdown. He did not, but he did get 215 yards, so that'll do. So that was good for 45, almost 46 points, which is just incredible. In the battle of the tight ends, Cole Kmet only able to get 4 points in Chicago's pretty much just got mollywopped in that KC game. Not much they could do, and with the pretty poor offense that's in Chicago there, it's kind of going to be what I would expect going to be a lot of the same a lot of the same production that you're going to see out of Cole, around 4 or 5 points. Maybe he'll be able to leech a couple touchdowns if they get down in the red zone, but we'll see. That Chicago offense is going to be brutal yet again. On the opposite side, TJ Hawkinson going off just about every time. TJ Hawkinson this time was able to get 13 points in the loss to the Chargers. So pretty modest there, but he's continuing to have an awesome season, but that's expected. Signed a huge contract, and there's limited options there in Minnesota. In the flex spot, we have Gus Edwards for new team same Zeke, who was able to get 5 points in that loss to Indy, while Zay Flowers continuing to show that awesome connection with Lamar Jackson, able to get 13 points, and also only able to get 13 points in that loss to Indy. In the battle of the defenses, we had the Niners, who just kind of had a field day with the Giants there, able to get 10 points, while the poor Jaguars got the hurt put on them by, I don't think a lot of people are expecting the Texans to be as good as they are right now, but hey, here we are. The Jaguars actually got minus 4 points, so that hurt, but we still able to somehow get the win there. Then in the matchup for the kickers, we had Harrison Butker for new team same Zeke getting a pretty decent 12 points in that win over Chicago, while Brandon Aubrey, I think he's one of the best kickers in the league right now, technically because of the offense, or because of the team he is on, able to get a decent 11 points. So roughly same stat line there in the loss to Arizona. All right. Now if we go into the Destino. Was it Destino Indica? Yeah. Boom. Okay. So, once again, for Destino, we had Josh Allen, who had a pretty awesome game, I would say, going off for 23 points in the win over Washington. Let me grab a little bit of water. Okie doke. While for Team Ditka, Justin Fields only able to muster up 11 points in that, just whomping by KC. If we go into the running backs, we had Josh Jacobs throwing up 11, pretty decent in that loss to Pittsburgh. Miles Sanders for Team Ditka got the better of him this week with 17 points in the loss to Seattle. In the next set of running backs, we had Brian Robinson for Destino, able to get 7 points, while Zach Moss, who just I wouldn't say show up. I'm not going to say show up out of nowhere, but I know a few people had him, picked him up off of waivers if he was even available, but it's nice to see that production. They're still waiting on on the results of Jonathan Taylor. I know he's been working out online, or he's been showing workouts online, but I think right now it's just still remains a contract dispute thing at this point. So we'll see how that pans out. But Zach Moss, in his absence, able to get 22 points in the win over Baltimore. And if we go and take a look at the wide receivers, there's Deebo Samuel, who was able to go off for 25 points in that win over the Giants. He is that gadget man, but there's going to be a lot of mouths to feed there in San Francisco, which is going to be the case every week. Then if we look at A.J. Brown, that star receiver for Philadelphia, able to get 22 points in that big win over Tampa. In the second set of wide receivers, we have Marquise Brown, able to get 17 points in the win over Dallas, while Jordan Addison, able to get 11 points in the loss to the Chargers. If we move straight on into the tight ends, we have Juwan Johnson, only able to get 3 points in that loss to Green Bay, while his counterpart, Kyle Pitts, who a lot of people were probably expecting to have a lot more production this season, you just haven't really seen it, even though Atlanta they're winning some games and they're doing a lot better, but still Kyle Pitts just has not been producing quite as well, only able to get 8 points this week. In the flex spot, Mike Williams, unfortunate here, went out with a torn ACL, done for the rest of the season, but before he did, he was able to get 25 points in that win over Minnesota, while Jerome Ford, who is one of those running backs stepping up in the replace of Nick Chubb, while I bet probably the idea is that Kareem Hunt is probably going to take the starting roles there once he gets acclimated, but Jerome Ford able to get 19 points in the meantime. In the defenses, like I just mentioned, the Browns being fantastic as of late, able to get 14 points in that crushing of Tennessee, while the Jets only able to get 2 points. They're going to be very hard to rely on, but I mean, that Jets defense though is pretty decent. You would hope that they would get a little bit more out of an ailing Mac Jones, but not quite, only able to get 2 this week. And then for the kickers, Destino able to get 6 with Younghoe Koo, while Jake Moody able to put up 12 for Team Ditka in that big win, in that Niners big win over the Giants. Okay, into our third matchup, which was huge for Nuge, able to get almost 200 points, 190 to 160 against the Desert Swarm. All right. So, starting off for Mr. Nuge, Justin Herbert going off for 33 big ones in that win over Minnesota, while Brock Purdy for the Desert Swarm able to get 23 points, very respectable, actually very good in that beatdown of the Giants. In the matchup of the running backs, Jahmyr Gibbs only able to get 9 points this week, despite Detroit kind of putting the hammer down on Atlanta, while Tony Pollard continuing to produce as he's going to with that Cowboy, just how that Cowboy offensive line and just how that entire offensive scheme works. But nonetheless, Tony Pollard this week, even though the Dallas Cowboys lost, able to get 15 points. In the next matchup of the running backs, we had Raheem Mostert just out of nowhere with pretty much all of the Dolphins offense just exploded. Mostert went up for 45 points, just ridiculous. And that was for Nuge's team, while Travis Etienne only got 17 points. which, still very decent, but I don't think anyone was expecting Houston to fight as much as they did, putting almost 40 on Houston. So brutal for the Desert Swarm. But if there was a saving grace, Desert Swarm had Tyreek able to get 30 points in that huge, just mind-blowing 70-20 win over the Broncos. Yo, what's up, J Money? Good to see you, brother. Much love. How we doing, brother? 2-1, let's go. Sam, I think I'm also 2-1. I don't think we went over my match before. But let's see, on the opposite side of Tyreek, we had Jamar Chase going off for 26 in a what seemingly was must-win game. Must-win win for the Bengals over the Rams. Then if we go into the next set of wide receivers, staying with nonetheless Team Nuge here, Puka Nacua, who has an awesome name to say because it's just very fun to say. 12 points in the loss to Cincy, while on the opposite side for the Desert Swarm, Amari Cooper able to get 24 points, finally showing out for Cleveland there in that win over Tennessee. Then if we take a look at the tight ends, Jacksonville first with Evan Engram able to get 13 points, looking like a stud pick once again in that loss to Houston, while Dallas Goedert, pretty respectable, 9 points in the win over Tampa Bay. Now if we move into that flex spot, we had Mike Evans, who came on late. I think he was able to haul in a touchdown towards the end of the game, if I remember correctly. Stop. Yeah, he had one to able to kind of salvage the day there with 17 points, and even though they lost to the Eagles, while Jacoby Myers, also had a pretty respectable day, despite the fact that the Raiders lost to Pittsburgh. Jacoby Myers able to get 15 points out of Jimmy Garoppolo. If we take a look at the defenses, the Bills just with an unheard of 31 points, my bad, as they won and beat the living crap out of the Commanders, 37-3, which just wow. Then if you look at the Dolphins, who even though they put up 70, only able to get 6 points from their defense, but that's mostly because of their offense just had themselves a day. And then lastly, in the matchup with the kickers, Cameron Dicker, the kicker, able to only get 3 points in the win over Minnesota, while Evan McPherson for the Bengals able to get 18 points in that win over the Rams. I believe he did kick the go-ahead game winner for them. I think that was like towards, not as time expired, but close to. All right. Next up, we have Young Guns and the Addams Family. Addams Family picking up the win here this week. Let me scroll this down. Okay. There we go. Whew. So starting with right? I think this is Young Guns over here. Yeah, Young Guns is on the left, just because it cuts off their teams. Okay. So Young Guns with Patty Mahomes able to get 28 points as they put the hurt on Chicago, while Tua, like I said, that whole Miami team just went off. Tua himself included went off for 31 in that 70-20 win over Denver. If we look at them running backs real quick, James Conner, who's starting to step into his own there in the Buffalo offense there, able to get 13 points this week in the win over the Commanders, while Ramondre Stevenson for the Addams Family here, able to get only 7 points in the narrow win over the Jets. If we move into the second set of running backs here, we have Kyren Williams for the Rams here, able to get 8 points in the loss to Cincy, while Javonte Williams also, putting up the same stat line with 8.5 points in that massive loss to Miami. Now, if we skip on into the wide receivers, we have T. Higgins, who he had some massive drops in that game against the Rams, only able to get 4 points, which would have had way more. He actually held on to those, but that's sometimes just how it is. While Stephon Diggs on the opposite side here, able to get 19 points in that huge win over the Commanders. In the wide receiver 2 spot, we had DK Metcalf going off for 17 points in the win over Carolina, while Devontae Smith only able to get 6 points in the win over Tampa. Devontae Smith being for D. Adams family, while Young Guns controlling it with Metcalf on that second set of wide receivers. Now, if we move into the tight ends, Mark Andrews, once again for the Young Guns here, only able to get 7.5 points. You know, pretty modest actually in the loss to Indy, while George Kittle able to get 16 points this time in the huge win over the Giants. And if we just roll right on into the flexes, we have Scary Terry able to get 10 points for Young Guns in that loss to the Buffalo Bills, while Nico Collins for Adams family able to only get 4 points. I can't read. That says 5 points in that huge win over Jacksonville. Next up is the defenses, where the Seahawks only able to get 2 points this week, even though they put I wouldn't say hurt, but they did get a 10-point win on Carolina, who, you know, was able to get 27 points on them. So that'll probably that helps it. That helps. That doesn't help, at least for Seattle there. And then when we get to Steelers, they were able to get 9 points this week, while they put a slight hurt in an away game there, which actually almost seemed like a whole game. I saw something on Twitter about just the amount of terrible towels that were just swirling in Allegiant Stadium, which is just crazy. I think that's actually just because it's just Vegas, like it's a destination hotspot, so a lot of people like to go there for away games. That's not really too shocking, but anywho, if we move into the kickers, we have Jake Elliott able to get 11 points in the big win over Tampa, while Riley Patterson, why did I say that so weird? Riley Patterson able to get 8 points in that big win over Atlanta. All right. So it was actually not super narrow. All right. And now it's come down to them Packers play tomorrow. I know, dude. I'm going to the game. I will be there. We have the reigning and defending Kelsey Me Softly able to get the win this week, 131-115 over CD's Nuts. All right. Trevor Lawrence able to get 17 points in that throttling by Houston, while Jalen Hurts able to throw up 22 points in the win over Tampa. If we move into the running backs, Bijan, the phenom there for the Falcons, only able to get 10 points this week in that loss to Detroit, while Rachaad White for Tampa able to get 7 points in the loss to Philly. For that one was for CD's Nuts, while Kelsey Me Softly here has Bijan and Trevor Lawrence. Speaking of Kelsey Me Softly, Kenneth Walker able to get 30 points this week. Huge, absolutely huge. While Chuba Hubbard only able to get 2 points this week in the loss to Seattle for CD's Nuts. Devontae Adams went off, just huge. I think there's 2 or 3 players this week that went into the 40-point margins. Devontae being one of them, which I didn't think was going to be possible with Jimmy G, but hey, that's just me. Able to get 42 points in that loss to Pitt, while Calvin Ridley only able to get 7 points this week because Houston, like I said before and I've mentioned, and I'm probably going to mention several more times, that Houston throttled Jacksonville this week, and Ridley being part of that. Unfortunate for Kelsey Me Softly, they did have a donut here being thrown up by Josh Reynolds, while the namesake for CD's Nuts, CD himself, had 10 points, even though Dallas did lose to the Cardinals. If we take a look at the tight end spot, we had the namesake for Kelsey Me Softly, Travis Kelce, able to get 19 points, while Jake Ferguson for Dallas able to only get 9 points. He's kind of starting to come into his own for that Dallas offense, which, is kind of weird because I don't even think Dallas knows what their offense is yet, but we'll see. Able to get 9 points that week in the loss to Arizona. Now, if we go into the flex spot, Adam Thielen, just huge game, 31 points in the loss to Seattle, while Michael Pittman Jr. Oh yeah, what's going on, BT? Coming in with that 34-month streak. Thank you so much, brother.
Blub blub.
Blub blub. Oh, now the TTS works. That's hilarious. Anyways, Michael Pittman Jr. for the Colts able to get 16 points in the win over Balti. Now, if we take a look at that wasn't even a word. Excuse me. If we take a look at the defenses, the Chiefs just put a huge hurting on the Bears. I know the Bears offense just not good at all this season. It looks like it's going to be a long season for Bears fans, unfortunately. But this week, Chiefs fans, celebrate. You got 12 points coming out of your defense. While the opposite side here for CD's team, able to only get -2 points coming from the Dallas defense there, which you hate to see when they were huge. What is it? It's not underdogs. They were favorites. They were huge favorites to obviously beat the Cardinals. Now, if we take a look at the kickers, Brandon McManus for Kelsey Me Softly here, only able to get 3 points, while Justin Tucker, probably one of the best kickers, if not the best kicker in the league currently, able to get 6 points in that loss to Indianapolis. And let's go into our last matchup of Week 3, which was the BJJs picking up the win over Bob's Burgers. All right, Mr. Cole's Cash himself, as we're going to get it started with the QBs. Kirk Cousins getting 29 points in that loss to the Chargers, while if we take a look at Jared Goff here, having another awesome season once again, which I don't think a lot of people with the Lions were expecting at first, but hey, here we are. Jared Goff throwing up 20 points in that win over Atlanta. Now, if we go into this first set of running backs, we have Christian McCaffrey, probably picked first in a lot of people's drafts, able to get 22 points in that huge win over the Giants, while Derrick Henry only able to get 2 points as he got bottled up by that Cleveland defense. Next up in the next set of running backs here, we have Alexander Madison who went off for 17 points for the BJJs in that loss against the Chargers. Well, DeAndre Swift, who a lot of people, including myself, thought Philly was going to be a running back by committee, but it turns out DeAndre Swift has just been honestly just killing it right now with all the touches he's been given. Anyways, 14 points this week in that win over Tampa for Bob's Burgers. If we move into the first set of wide receivers, we have Chris Olave. Had a decent game against the Packers in an 18-point loss, though, while Garrett Wilson only able to get 9 points and continues to kind of have an up and down season, which is going to be how it is with the Jets with, sans Rodgers this year. If we go into the next set of wide receivers here, we have Tyler Lockett able to get 8 points this week in the win over Carolina, while DJ Moore for the Bob's Burgers team, probably the only real lone bright spot, I guess, on that Bears offense, apart from if you have Justin Fields, who can, just run everywhere. But DJ Moore still showing that he can get some production, able to get 13 points this week. While if we skip into the tight ends here, we have Darren Waller for the BJJs, only able to get 5 points. A lot of people probably drafted Waller pretty high. They would love to see some more production out of him. Haven't seen it yet, but we'll see how the rest of the season turns out. Tyler Higbee for the Rams, able to get 12 points this week in the loss to Cincinnati. If we take a quick little look-ski at the flex spot, George Pickens able to get 11 points this week in the win over the Raiders in Las Vegas too, which is insane. I think George Pickens also probably one of the only lone consistent bright spots on that Steelers team right now. Then if you look at the flex spot for Bob's Burgers, DeAndre Hopkins able to get 7 points in that loss to Cleveland. And then if we look at the defenses, we have New England Patriots able to get 11 points in the win over the Jets, while the Eagles for Bob's Burgers here only able to get 14 points in a 25 to 11 point win over the Buccaneers. And then Greg Joseph able to get 6 points in the loss to the Chargers, while Matt Gay able to get 24 points, just awesome for a kicker, in the win over Baltimore. Okay. I'll switch that. I'm going to take 2 quick seconds, and then we are going to jump on in with the updated power rankings. So I'll be right back. 2 seconds. Alright, y'all. Sorry about that. So now, I have the updated power rankings for you all. Well, I am just getting something pulled up really quick. Okay. All right. Let's do it. All right. This is how the week 3 power rankings are shaping up. So, Team Nugent going up and taking the new number 1 overall top dog spot in our league here, while CD's Nuts is actually falling from the number 1 spot into our number 2 spot. Team Nugent, Nugent's team is moved to 2-1. CD's Nuts at number 2 has also improved to 2-1. Desert Swarm dropping into our number 3 spot, also improving to 2-1 on the week, or on the season. Then if we move right along into the middle of the pack, Addams Family dropping out of the top dogs into the 4th spot with a 2-1 record. Then there was no movement with the 5th, 6th, and 7th spot, so Kelsey Me Softly, the BJJs, and Massage Watson all come in with the same record of 2-1. Destino moving up to the 8th spot with a record of 2-1. Then Bob's Burgers falling to 1-2 and falling down into the 9th spot. Team Ditka, as well as they picked up a loss this week, dropped down to 10th. New team, same Zeke, even though losing, somehow gained a spot, went from 11th to 12th to start off our dumpster fires, and neither of which have won a game. So new team, same Zeke and Young Guns both sitting at an 0-3 on the record. New team, same Zeke sitting at 11th, and Young Guns at 12th. Ooh. Shaking the whole system here. Alright. Now, I'm going to switch it up again to our preview for week 4 now. Alright. So this week, in week 4, starting at the top, we have Massage Watson coming in at 2-1, taking on the Desert Swarm, who have been surging themselves, except for the loss that they took. But I think that was more of a product of just Miami going off. But we'll really see now, as a battle of the 2-1s, Massage Watson and Desert Swarm taking our first matchup. In our next matchup of the week, we have new team, same Zeke, taking on Destino, while new team, same Zeke is still looking for their first win on the season. Then, moving right along into our third matchup, we have Team Ditka taking on Team Nuge. Nuge looking upon to build upon a huge win last week, while Team Ditka trying to bounce back after a loss last week. Team Ditka coming into the matchup 1-2, while Team Nugent, number 1 top dog in the league, coming in at 2-1. Then in our next matchup, we have our reigning and defending champion of the league, Kelsey Me Softly, coming in with a record of 2-1 to the matchup, taking on the 0-3 Young Guns. Now, in our second last matchup, we have D. Adams Family taking on the BJJs. Both teams coming to this matchup with a record of 2-1. And then, finally, in our last matchup of the week, we have CD's Nuts coming in with a record of 2-1, taking on Bob's Burgers, who has a record of 1-2 on the season. But as we did similarly with our review of last week, now what we're going to do for the previews is take a look and kind of take our picks on which players going head to head are going to have the better week. Let's take a look. Alright, so starting first, we're going to take a look at the Massage Watson and Desert Swarm matchups and kind of just go down the list. Alright. Perfect. Okay. So, almost. Try not to get people cut off too much here. Alright, so we have Jenny! Thank you so much, fam, coming up with that resub of, let's see, of 7 months? Sheesh!
Owens swaz up fam less than 3.
Oh yeah, the TTS made that awesome. Thank you so much. What's going on? Appreciate you. Hope you're doing well, staying safe. You're wonderful. Lol. I'm so glad that works on this scene. But Anyways, we're just doing, another episode of Fantasy Haus Live. It's what we have apparently been doing on Wednesdays. So, anyways, we just did the power rankings and are now going into the preview. This horrible week review. Actually, this one's the preview, so we ain't even looking. We already done so. But hey, if it makes you feel any better, I think you're still in the top dogs for the power rankings. So hey, you're still up there. But all right, let's take a look at this first matchup. So we have Massage Watson taking on Desert Swarm. Deshaun Watson and the Browns taking on Baltimore versus Brock Purdy and San Fran taking on Arizona. Oof, you got to go with Brock Purdy on this one. Arizona looks pretty iffy. I know maybe I'm just saying that, but hey, maybe that Dallas was a statement game, but we'll see. I know it's San Fran's just a buzzsaw though. But I think Brock Purdy's going to score some more there. If we go into the running backs, we have Najee Harris and Pittsburgh taking on Houston versus Tony Pollard and Dallas taking on New England. Once again, going to have to roll Tony Pollard on this one. Najee, as I was talking about in the reviews, it seems like Najee and Jaylen Warren are kind of like in some sort of timeshare, which doesn't really bode well, and it doesn't really help that the Steelers just aren't really good right now. But they are still winning some games. But overall, I think Tony Pollard's going to have a bigger day. The New England defense is going to be stout and pretty tough, but even with Belichick scheming against them, I think Pollard's going to have a better day. If we look at the running backs, we have Joshua Kelly in for the Chargers. Assuming because this is Massage Watson is my team, so if Joshua Kelly isn't ready to rock, or he's going to be the lead back, we'll go. But we're hoping that Eckler will play, but we'll see. Right now we have Kelly slotted in to take some of the role, and I'll be honest, he has not looked good in the chances he has been given without Eckler, and that's unfortunate. Looking at the person he's going against, or the player he's going against this week, it's actually Travis Etienne. So Jacksonville taking on Atlanta. Got to once again roll with the other team here, and Travis Etienne. You know he's going to get the ball. You know he's going to be effective with it. And Atlanta they are pretty stout on defense as well, but I think Jacksonville is going to be able to figure out something against them a little bit. Now, if we go into wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Detroit taking on Green Bay tomorrow versus Ty Freak and Miami taking on Buffalo. Ooh. I gotta roll with Buffalo, or not Buffalo. I gotta roll with Tyreek just because it's Tyreek. The man is having the most incredible season I think a lot of people have come to really remember recently. It's like you could double, triple that man. He's still gonna burn him. Now, if the opposite side here for Amon-Ra, if Jair doesn't play, he could have himself a decent day. But I think we all know that Ty Freak is probably going to be having the more of a monster day. If we move into the next set of wide receivers, we have Keenan Allen and the Chargers taking on the Raiders versus Amari Cooper and Cleveland taking on Baltimore. This one actually finally favors my team here. We have Keenan Allen. I think it's a favorable matchup with the Raiders. Keenan Allen having an awesome game last week. Mike Williams out for the year, so that should also boost his kind of target share a little bit. While Amari Cooper, the only reason why he'll still get receptions for sure, but I don't expect him to go completely off. I'm still kind of iffy on Watson myself. There's just sometimes where he's just making some goofy ass plays, and sometimes kind of put his team in danger. But if he's connecting with Amari, they look pretty damn good together. However, Baltimore is another one of those teams that runs a pretty damn good defense. So it's going to be tough, but I think Keenan might actually have the better matchup. Like I said, that one's purely based off of the matchup. If we move into the tight ends, we have TJ Hawkinson in Minnesota taking on Carolina versus Dallas Goedert, and Philly taking on Washington. Got to go Hawkinson on this one. He's been a pretty consistent part of that Minnesota offense. Carolina's defense and the team himself is not 100% great, While Dallas Goedert, he's still, he's kind of got a mediocre role, somewhat consistent, but he doesn't throw up huge numbers, even though the Commanders is a favorable matchup. In the flex spot, we have Zay Flowers in Baltimore taking on Cleveland versus Jacoby Myers. And, the Raiders taking on the Chargers. This could be an interesting matchup, actually. But if I had to guess, I think Jacoby Myers would have the better day here. Even though the Raiders are not that great. And they have Jimmy G. Jimmy G, actually, or both Devontae and Jacoby Myers were able to feast last game. I think Jacoby had 14 points, while Tay almost had like 30 or 40 or something like that. It was ridiculous. But either way, the Chargers defense not quite as great. Maybe able to get after Jimmy G a little bit more, so I'd totally be prepared to eat my words. Zay Flowers has been consistent for the Ravens, especially in building a repertoire with Lamar Jackson. But as you've heard me say probably a few times throughout the show, Cleveland's defense actually is, I'm pretty sure, ranked number 1 in the league. So yeah, they are very good, and it's going to be pretty tough. So while Zay may get some receptions, I would find it hard to believe that he is going to be able to outperform the favorable matchup that Jacoby Myers has. In the defensive spots, we have the Bengals taking on Tennessee versus the Ravens taking on Cleveland. You have the Ravens defense, pretty decent, going against Cleveland's offense, which is obviously going to be without Chubb. Hunt is going to have another week under his belt of learning things. Hopefully, they want, obviously, Deshaun to play a bit better. If you look on the opposite side here for the Bengals, they are pretty much playing with their backs up against the wall for the rest of the season, as they took those 2 early losses. So they're 1-2 on the year, and going to be pretty much playing one would assume, their best football. That Bengals defense might stand a chance because the Tennessee Titans did not look that great last week. And yeah, I think honestly, I'm going to roll with Bengals on this one. I think the Bengals might be able to bottle up Tennessee again, but that's purely going off of the fact that Bengals are 1-2. Everyone knows that they should be a better team right now. It's unfortunate they're not, but with their backs up against the wall, if they want to even make any sort of playoff push later, they got to start winning. And you got to keep winning too. And a statement win against Tennessee, kind of building that momentum, will definitely help. While the Ravens, I know they're going to be taking on and fighting hard against Cleveland. I think that one might end up more of a shootout. And so that's not going to be too good for fantasy defenses. Then if we take a look at kickers, we have Brandon Aubrey for Dallas going against New England versus Evan McPherson and Cincy taking on the Titans. Ooh. I'm gonna go with Aubrey on this one. And I just think that this might be another game where Dallas sort of struggles because Belichick has been able to kind of scheme against them. Dallas's offensive line is also ailing. So we'll see. And Belichick likes to run a pretty stout defense. So it would not surprise me that if Aubrey actually goes out there and is able to hit some long field goals. McPherson, he's one of the best kickers in the league, so don't count him out at all. This Tennessee matchup is also pretty favorable because, hey, this could be another one of those games where somehow the Titans just show up and shut down Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, and it's all up to McPherson to just bang the long gun all day and just, get him to it. So you could honestly see this matchup swinging either way. But I'm going to... Man, yeah, I almost just talked myself into just swinging McPherson, but I think I'm going to stick with Aubrey on this one, getting the better day. Okay. Into our second matchup, which is new team same Zeke taking on Destino. Drop that down so we can see all the players. All right. Oh, too far down. Gotta stop doing that. There. Okay. Perfect. So now we have Lamar Jackson, Baltimore taking on Cleveland versus Josh Allen and Buffalo taking on Miami. Ooh, this is, in my opinion, this would be a similar matchup. Miami defense is pretty good. That Buffalo defense is coming off of a huge game last week. Lamar Jackson. I mean, it's Lamar and the Ravens, man. They've been damn good, too. Going against Cleveland, who's been showing some doubters wrong. I mean, obviously, their offense needs some work. I'm going to roll... You know what? I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson's going to have the better day. I think Josh Allen might struggle a little bit with how well that Miami defense is playing right now. But we'll see. I would not be surprised to be eating my words later on. In the first sets of running backs, we have Joe Mixon and Cincy taking on Tennessee versus Josh Jacobs. And the Raiders taking on the Chargers. 1 second. Oakley Dokley. Where were we? Oh yeah, we were the running backs, weren't we? This is another favorable matchup, isn't it? Since Joe Mixon and Cincy taking on Tennessee. I think I might go with Josh Jacobs on this one. I know that Chargers defensive line is pretty decent, but so I think the Tennessee defense might be a little bit more stout this week and kind of be able to bottle up that Cincy offense. I think it's going to be not a shootout, but I think it's going to be a bit more of a low-scoring affair. Whereas the Chargers, I'm not completely sold on them. I don't think anyone else this year yet is either. So I think Josh Jacobs might be the safer bet to have the higher number here. Higher amount of points. In the next set of running backs, we have Pacheco and KC taking on the Jets versus Brian Robinson and Washington taking on Philly. Oof. Gotta go with Pacheco. This one's matchup based. That Philly defensive front is insane. Pacheco taking on the Jets. I know the Jets are a pretty mediocre defense, but I think Pacheco is still going to be fine here. In the wide receivers, we have Justin Jefferson in Minnesota taking on Carolina versus Debo and San Fran taking on Arizona. Got to go with Justin Jefferson going against a weaker Carolina team. I know Debo is a badass, but there's just so many mouths to feed in that San Fran offense. And additionally, Arizona's coming off a huge win against Dallas, so who knows? They could be for real, and could be. What if they play spoiler again? Who knows? We'll see. That's why I think Justin Jefferson is the better odds favorite to have the better day. In the next set of wide receivers, we had Gabe Davis for Buffalo taking on Miami versus Marquise Brown for Arizona taking on San Fran. Ooh. Why did that just switch? Ow. What in Sam Hell? What just happened? Did like a plugin just stop working? Yeah, like what? I was like, oh my god, it was like a flashbang went off. Oh. It burns. Anyways. Let's move this back. There we go. Good lord. Okay. I know, holy Casper just phew. Where was that? Oh yeah. Second set of wide receivers. We had Gabe Davis in Buffalo taking on Miami versus Marquise Brown in Arizona taking on San Fran. Ooh. I'm going to roll with Gabe Davis having the better day. Just maybe ever so slightly. the light's so pretty. It burns, dude. It was like I said, flashbang out. In the not first set, the tight end matchup here, we have Luke Musgrave and the Green Bay Packers taking on Detroit versus Juwan Johnson and New Orleans taking on Tampa. Juwan Johnson has not been utilized a ton in that New Orleans offense there, so I'm going to roll with Luke Musgrave, who has been carving out a bit more of a role, and you're probably going to honestly see a bit more of an expanded role as he's built up more into the offense, which, obviously you can see him repping the green and gold because I am a Packer fan, so that makes me very happy. In the flex matchups, we have Gus Edwards, who is still splitting out carries technically with Justice Hill, but Justice Hill, I think, is questionable at the moment. But Baltimore taking on Cleveland versus a Mike Williams, who clearly is not going to play anymore this season. So this one's got to go straight up to Gus Edwards. If we move into the defenses, the Niners taking on Arizona versus the Browns taking on Baltimore. You got to go with the Niners defense on this one, even though the Browns are ranked number 1. I think Lamar and the Ravens are going to put up a little bit more of a fight. And obviously, if you get more of a fight out of the opponent when it comes to the defense, you get less points. It's kind of just obvious. And I think the Niners might put a bit of a hurting on Arizona, unless, hey, I have said this before, and I think I maybe said it not even 2 minutes ago, but if Arizona shows up to play and upsets yet another team, people are gonna start taking this Arizona team for real. Then if we get into the kickers lastly here, we have Harrison Butker and KC taking on the Jets versus Younghoe Koo and Atlanta taking on Jacksonville. I actually think Younghoe Koo might have the better day here, as those two teams are a little bit more evenly matched up. I think KC is probably just going to have their way with the Jets there. So I think Butker might really only be kicking extra points, while Younghoe Koo might actually be kicking actual field goals from, I don't know, who knows, right? But I think he'll be kicking actual field goals, which will equate to some more points for him. All right, in our third matchup, we got Team Dicka and Team Nooch. All right, first up for Team Dicka, we got Justin Fields and Chicago taking on Denver versus Justin Herbert and the Chargers taking on the Raiders. I'm going to roll Justin Herbert on this one, even though Justin Fields, obviously a dual threat quarterback, which we all know. That Chicago Bears team is garbage, and I'm not even trying to say that as they are most hated rivals, but they are just not looking too good. So Justin Herbert for sure. In the battle of the running backs, first one we have Miles Sanders and Carolina taking on Minnesota versus James Conner. Arizona taking on San Fran. Miles Sanders actually had a pretty good week last week. Both these running backs carry the questionable designation, so hopefully they can go. But if they are, I'm going to go ahead and say Miles Sanders is going to have the better day. Looking at the matchups, the Vikings just don't have a great defense, while I said it before, but Niners have an awesome defense, and they're going to be like running into a buzzsaw unless they kind of play upset like they did for Dallas. But that'll be interesting to see. In the next set of running backs, we have Zach Moss and Indy taking on the Rams versus Raheem Mostert and Miami taking on Buffalo. Zach Moss had a very good game last week, while Raheem Mostert, obviously one of those huge benefactors of that just huge offensive explosion they had against Denver. Raheem Mostert, I know A-Chain also got some touches in there, and there's been a lot of talk about him too, and a lot of hype. Zach Moss, I think if we're going to go, I think obviously Raheem is going to have a bit more of a return to earth this week, but I'm going to go and take a wild guess and say that Zach Moss is actually going to have the better day against this Rams team, which is, in my opinion, a bit worse than the Buffalo defense, but we'll see. In the matchup of wide receivers, we have A.J. Brown and Philly taking on Washington versus Jamar Chase and Cincy taking on Tennessee. Got to roll Jamar Chase on this one, especially if Cincy is finding their ground and kind of continuing that momentum. Jamar Chase looked pretty good last week. Hopefully he's able to build on it this week against a weaker Tennessee offense or defense. In the next set of wide receivers, we have Jordan Addison, Minnesota versus Carolina versus Puka Nacua, and the Rams taking on Indy. Ooh. I actually like Jordan Addison in this one. He's been getting the ball pretty consistently as the Vikings Or I should say move on. They haven't had Thielen for like a little bit, but they've moved on from Thielen. They go solely on Justin Jefferson and this new kid, the rookie, Jordan Addison. He's actually been having a hell of a year so far. If we move into the tight ends, we got Sam Laporta for Detroit going against Green Bay versus Evan Engram. Ooh, in Jacksonville going against Atlanta. This is an interesting matchup. Sam Laporta, I don't think anyone was expecting him to come out of nowhere and be as productive as he has been. He's been killing it with Detroit. Whereas if you look at Evan Engram, he's also been killing it there in Jacksonville, even dating back to last season. I'm going to go with Evan Engram on this one. Yeah, I'm just going to go with Evan Engram. Looking at just the defenses on this one, I know Green Bay is kind of like mediocre middle of the pack this year at the moment, so you could probably expect Laporta to actually maybe have a decent game, as we kind of struggle against tight ends sometimes. But Evan Engram, I think he had a 17-point game last week, and Atlanta still, even though they are still pretty stout, they are also another one that is a middle of the pack defense, but not quite as middle of the pack as Green Bay, if that makes sense. So I expect Evan to maybe just have a little bit better of a day. Moving to the flex, we got probably one of the hottest waiver wire pickups this week was Mr. Devon Achane going against Buffalo versus Mike Evans in Tampa going against New Orleans. Because Raheem Mostert is still going to be playing. Achane still going to, I would imagine, is still going to get some meaningful carries. But if you look at Mike Evans, who is without a doubt the number one tight end, number one wide receiver there in Tampa, and Baker looks his way favorably. I think Actually, I think I'm going to go with Mike Evans on this one. New Orleans, they did just give up those 18 unanswered points to Jordan Love. I could see another implosion coming here with their defense being on the field too much, because New Orleans is going to have Jameis Winston this week. So if their defense is always on the field, they're going to be tired, which eventually is going to, at some point, something's got to get through. If we get into the defenses, we have the Jets taking on KC. That's going to be tough versus the Bills taking on Miami. That's also kind of tough. If I had to guess which was going to not give up as many points, I'd have to guess the Bills. If we go into the kickers, we have Jake Moody and the Niners taking on the Cards versus Cameron Dicker and the Chargers taking on the Raiders. I'm going to take Cameron Dicker in this one. Those two offenses, the Chargers and the Raiders, are a little bit more evenly matched than I think people realize this season, which might end up equaling out to some more field goals for Cameron Dicker. While Jake Moody, if this is true, or it turns out to be true that San Fran just buzzsaws the Cardinals, then you could just see some extra points for Jake Moody, and that's not going to equate to as many points. Come on. All right. In our next matchup, we have Kelsey Me Softly taking on the Young Guns. So for Kelsey Me Softly, we have Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville taking on Atlanta versus Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs taking on the Jets. Got to roll with Mahomes all day on that one. The Jets I have a feeling that Jets defense is going to be on the field often because Zach Wilson's not good. I don't think that's a newsflash to anyone. Then if we get into the running backs, Bijan Robinson in Atlanta taking on Jacksonville versus James Cook and Buffalo taking Miami. I'm going to go with Bijan Robinson. Mans is a stud running back, just looking absolutely incredible. I think he's going to do some damn good things for Atlanta and especially put up some huge points against Jacksonville. In the running backs position, we have Kenneth Walker and Seattle taking on the Giants versus Kyron Williams and the Rams taking on Indy. Kenneth Walker is coming off a huge game last week. I'm going to expect him to go off again this week against the Giants, who just can't seem to put it together this season so far. In the wide receiver 1 matchups, we have Calvin Ridley in Jacksonville taking on Atlanta versus T. Higgins and Cincy versus Tennessee. T. Higgins had some bad drops in their win last week. While Calvin Ridley I think he only got 7 points while they got blown out by Houston. So if that happens again, if Atlanta is able to cover and that happens again for Ridley, that could be some troubles. But if I had to choose between these two teams, I think. Honestly, I think I might have to go with Ridley. No, I think I'm going to go with Higgins. I think he'll have a bounce back game. I think the corners in Atlanta are pretty damn good, and I don't know if I think Ridley might get not trapped in a box, but I definitely think he'll put up some points, but I don't think as many as against T. Higgins will against that mediocre Tennessee defense. If we move into the wide receivers, we have Tank Dell in Houston taking on that mediocre Pitt defense versus DK Metcalf taking on Giants. Tank Dell has been killing it as of recently. Let's see. Had 20 points the game before, 25. CJ Stroud looks his way often. And that's good against the Pittsburgh, which has not looked too good. But DK, though, taking on the Giants, who also have not looked good. I think this might be a more of a test for Houston going against that Pittsburgh defense. So I think I'm going to roll with DK this week going against the Giants. If we take a look at the tight ends, we have Travis Kelce and the Chiefs taking on the Jets versus Mark Andrews and Baltimore taking on Cleveland. Got to go with, if you're looking at the matchups here, got to go with Kelce for sure. In the flex spot, you have the number 1 wide receiver for Carolina there, in Adam Thielen, going against Minnesota versus Scary Terry and Washington taking on Philly. The only reason, and let's see, if Bryce Young is unable to go and Andy Dalton is in, then I think you'll see an uptick in the usage of Adam Thielen for sure. But Scary Terry taking on the Philadelphia Eagles this week is not good. They are a damn good team. I think they have a few injuries though. But in the case that Andy Dalton does play this week, I think Thielen will have the better week. In the defenses, the Chiefs taking on the Jets versus the Seahawks taking on the Giants. Chiefs easily because they're taking on Zach Wilson, who just can't seem to play football. In the battle of the kickers, finally, we have Maher and the Rams taking on Indy versus Jake Elliott and the Eagles taking on Washington. I think Maher and the Rams will actually have might have more use in the field goal department than Jake Elliott will. I think the Eagles aren't going to have too much trouble with the Commanders. So I think he'll just be getting a lot more extra points. All right. We got 2 more to go. D. Adams family but JJ's is next. Oop, let me move this down just a hair. Okay, so first up we got Tua and Miami taking on Buffalo versus Kirk Cousins and Minnesota taking on Carolina. I mean, it's hard to not pick Tua because of just how insanely productive everyone on that Dolphins team has been. Kirk Cousins been having himself a phenomenal season so far, but unfortunately hasn't equaled up to much wins for Minnesota this year. Carolina, probably one of the lower teams in the league this year. But I can't go against Tua. Tua is just looking too good. In the first set of running backs, we have Ramondre Stevenson in New England taking on Dallas versus Christian McCaffrey in San Fran taking on Arizona. Got to go with Christian McCaffrey just because that Arizona matchup is just looking too good, especially for a team as good as San Fran. In the next set of running backs, we have Javonte Williams in Denver taking on Chicago versus Dameon Pierce in Houston taking on Pitt. Ooh. Javonte Williams has had himself a decent comeback season after injury last season. Dameon Pierce is on a Houston squad that has proven some doubters wrong, but they are taking on a pretty mediocre Pitt squad. Javonte Williams going up against Chicago, who is just been unfortunately got awful on pretty much all sides of the ball. But I think Javonte might actually have a slightly better day against Chicago than Pierce will against Pitt. I think Pitt might be a little bit of a problem for Houston. In the wide receiver 1 spots, we have Stephon Diggs of Buffalo taking on Miami versus Chris Olave in New Orleans taking on Tampa. Ooh, Chris Olave's got famous Jameis throwing tube now. Yeah, I think I gotta go with Diggs for sure. In the next set of wide receivers, we have Devontae Smith in Philly taking on Washington versus George Pickens and Pitt taking on Houston. I know Hurts likes to dish it out. He's been throwing a lot to oh my god. Why can't I? Bro. Why am I drawing such a blank on who the other wide receiver in? I'm so dumb. AJ Brown, Jesus, what the I had just said his name earlier. AJ Brown is still the main focus there, but Jalen Hurts is showing the ability that he can spread the ball pretty much everywhere. But in this matchup, I'm gonna have to roll with Devontae. I think that Washington Commanders defense is a bit worse than the Houston one is. In the battle of the tight ends, we have George Kittle and San Fran taking on Arizona versus Darren Waller, and the Giants taking on Seattle. Gotta go with Kittle. That San Fran team is just too damn good. In the next set of flex matchup here, we got Nico Collins in Houston taking on Pittsburgh versus Alexander Madison and Minnesota taking on Carolina. This one's kind of hard. Because that Houston offense has been pretty damn good. Pitt, mediocre defense there. Madison has not been good going against Carolina, who also hasn't been that great. I think Nico Collins might have the better day, but just ever so slightly. Also here, I think they're picking up more running backs there in Minnesota. For the defenses, we have the Steelers taking on Houston versus the Patriots taking on Dallas. Who is going to put up more points? Houston, pretty good, showing that they have a good offense going up against the Steelers defense, while the Patriots have a good, semi-good defense going against Dallas, who just came off of a loss to Arizona. I'm gonna guess that the Patriots will. Maybe hope the Patriots will, but I don't think those. I think this might be a pretty even stat line between these two defenses. Then if we get into the kickers, we got Riley Patterson, Detroit, taking on Green Bay versus Greg Joseph in Minnesota, taking on Carolina. And attack Green Bay too. I think, honestly enough, I think the Vikings and Carolina's offenses are kind of similar. They're both pretty bad, so I think Craig Joseph might have the better stat line this week. All right. And to send things off and to close her on out for the preview of next week, we've got CD's Nuts taking on Bob's Burgers. All right. Starting at the top with the QBs, we got Jalen Hurts and the Eagles taking on Washington versus Detroit. Detroit's Jared Goff taking on Green Bay. Got to go with Hurts. That matchup is just too good going up against the Commanders. If we look at the running backs, we have Rachaad White and Tampa taking on New Orleans versus Derrick Henry and Tennessee taking on Cincy. I would love for Derrick Henry to show out and take back his king-worthy status, but Tennessee has not looked that great. I think they've had some offensive line struggles going up against a Cincinnati team, which is going to be playing with their backs against the wall. Not that I expect Rachaad White to have a huge offensive day going against New Orleans, who is going to be trying to bounce back from a loss against Green Bay last week. But it's hard to go against It's hard to go against the king. Got to go with Derrick Henry, just ever so slightly though. Like it's just that offense is not helping them right now. In the next set of running backs, we have Chuba Hubbard and Carolina taking on Minnesota versus DeAndre Swift and the Eagles taking on the Commanders. DeAndre Swift also having himself a hell of a season. That's why he's going to be my pick again. In the first set of wide receivers, we have Devontae Adams coming off a huge game, and the Raiders taking on the Chargers versus Garrett Wilson and the Jets taking on KC. Gotta go with Devontae Adams for sure. Showing that even with Jimmy Garoppolo throwing to him, he can still produce. Had a great game last week. Garrett Wilson, unfortunately, without Rodgers, is looking to be pretty sketchy for the rest of the season. In wide receiver 2 spot, we have CD and Dallas taking on New England versus DJ Moore and Chicago taking on Denver. I actually think DJ Moore might get a little bit more points. They line DJ Moore pretty much everywhere. They seem to be able to get him the ball, and he's able to make some use of it. Whereas CD, I think that maybe Belichick. I'm not saying that they're going to all be in a box, but I think he might obviously be game counting for CD, and I think CD might have a little bit of a lower day when compared to DJ Moore. Now, if we take a look at tight ends, we have Jake Ferguson. And the Dallas and the Cowboys taking on New England versus Tyler Higbee and the Rams taking on Indy. Higbee had himself a decent game last week. And I think he might have a decent game this week, assuming he's able to play. I'm just not 100% sold on that Indy defense yet. If we look at the flex, we got Michael Pittman Jr. in Indy, wide receiver, Indianapolis taking on the Rams versus DeAndre Hopkins, and Tennessee taking on Cincy. I might roll with Pittman Jr. on this one to have the better, even though I don't like usually taking the pick against Hopkins, but that Tennessee offense, has just not shown up to play yet. And like I said a little bit before, Cincy is going to be playing with their backs against the wall for pretty much the rest of the season. So I think Pittman might actually have the better season or better day. In the defenses, we have the Cowboys taking on New England versus the Eagles taking on Washington. Ooh. Even though they are taking on Mac Jones, that is a very formidable defensive front. Yeah, they're the best defense in the league, but they did just get messed up by Josh Dobbs and the Cardinals, though. So, and I think New England is better than Washington, so I think the Eagles might have put up some more points this week, at least more than the Cowboys, in my opinion, if I had to guess. Then finally, in the battle of the kickers, we have Justin Tucker. We will bounce back, I believe, but you got to show it. Now you got to show it. Because y'all got your salads tossed by the friggin' Cardinals of all people. New England will be kind of like that. It'll be an underdog game that everyone thought you were going to win, and if Belichick schemes it right, we'll see. Shh. Lol. All right, and then in the final matchup, we got Justin Tucker and Baltimore. Wait, Dallas didn't get kicked out of the league? Not yet. Lol. Tucker and Baltimore taking on Cleveland versus Matt Gay and Indy taking on the Rams. Matt Gay had a huge game last week. I honestly think he might do it again this week with just how kind of mediocre that Indianapolis team is and with how semi-good the Rams are. I think he'll be able to do it. Ramsey, baby, what's up, dude? Let's go. Coming in with that 14-month resub, dude. Thank you. All these magical resubs. Thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Doing swell, my guy. How have you been? Thanks for stopping on by on this fantabulous Wednesday night. We are just finishing off some of the preview for Week 4. And to kind of make that big last pick, I think Matt Gay's going to have the better day. But yeah, so that kind of finishes the Fantasy Haus Live thing. But to put the cherry on the top, we are going to do what I've been kind of doing new this season is we are going to take a look at the schedule for the week and take our picks. So we're gonna make sure we can get the whole season in one shot. Okay, we'll do that. Bust out our clipping tool real quick. And we'll do this. Perfect. And then we'll minimize that. Open this. Make it nice and big. And then switch this window here to our snipping tool, which you can't see. That's fun. Okay. Why don't you want to show? Fine, we'll do it this way. We'll just do the display capture. Perfect. Okay. Here we go. So for the... Wait a second. Am I missing a week here? Yeah, we are. Oh my god. I was like, we're missing the Thursday night game. Good lord. Alright, let's try that again. I was wondering why this didn't look right. Okay. Perfect. Okay. I can zoom in on this, right? Yeah. Alright. So we got the Lions taking on the Packers. This is gonna be an awesome game. I can't wait. I'm happy that I get to go and be in Lambeau tomorrow. So we're gonna go, and I'm gonna, go Pack, go baby. But we'll see if these new Detroit Lions are for reals. I mean, we already know they're for reals, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay, moving right along. We got Falcons and Jags. I would love the Jags to bounce back, but I think the Falcons are gonna be able to handle some business. Buffalo and the Dolphins. I like what McDaniel's doing down there. Let's go Dolphins. Vikings, and this is... Wow. This is going to be a brutal game. Let's see. And it's a revenge game for Adam Thielen. Give me... do we really want to try and roll with the Panthers? Revenge game for Adam Thielen here. But, I mean, it's not in Minnesota. Give me the Vikings. Even though it's a revenge game, I just don't trust the Panthers. I'm sorry. Bears at Broncos. Broncos, let's ride. Bears are just too bad. Ravens at Browns. Give me Browns in a close one. Steelers at Texans. Texans are pretty shockingly good right now. Steelers, their defense is what's keeping them in it. Do I want to pick the Steelers? I kind of do. Let's do... Yeah, I think we'll do the Steelers. Colts and Rams. I think Colts will get it done. Buccaneers and Saints. Buccaneers. Because the Saints now have Famous Amos. Commanders, Eagles. Definitely Eagles. Titans, Bengals. Give me Bengals playing up with their backs against the wall. Chargers, Raiders. Give me Chargers. Patriots, Cowboys. I'll choose Cowboys. Cardinals, Niners, Niners. Chiefs, Jets, Chiefs. All right. Oh. And then Seattle and Giants. We'll go Seattle. Give me Seattle. All right. So that's our picks for the week. For, what is this, week 4? Yeah, for week 4. But all right, cool. We did it. Let me save this as week 4 picks. There we go. All right. Then that, I guess I can switch this back here. Then that is technically going to conclude the Fantasy Haus live portion of the stream. So the way I've been uploading all of this stuff to YouTube and just exporting it straight on over. So if you guys aren't already following the YouTube, or perhaps maybe you missed part of this episode, there's the link. You can feel free to take a look, subscribe. That'd mean the world to me, as we're still kind of building out this awesome channel. As for the people that are here in stream, I'm gonna take like maybe a quick little break. Should be only be like a minute or two. Restart stream, and then we're probably gonna go and play some games. Maybe, probably with some Counter-Strike 2, as it just released today. But for everyone that was just hanging out for the sports talk and fantasy football talk and all that good stuff, thank you guys for coming around, hanging around. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, as you've always heard that. Definitely going to be doing a safety meeting for sure. And other than that, I hope to catch you guys in the next episode. You guys are amazing, and I love you, and I hope to see you guys later. Peace out, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Take 5, people in stream, take 5.